What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Blake Haggett Podcast. We are visually live, as well as we're going to chop up this audio and make a great podcast for you guys. And today we have the opportunity to speak with a good friend of mine, Robert. What's going on?
Not too much, Blake. Thanks for having me. I think you're right there with me. I cannot wait to get my haircut coming out of this thing. Now I just wear hats.
Our hair's
every day.
Exactly. Yep. Every single day. So Robert, do you go by Rob or Robert? Robert. Okay. So let's give our followers, listeners, everybody out there a brief synopsis about who you are, what you do, where you're located. Not the elevator pitch. I learned my lesson last time with you.
Oh, I hold on to that one every time elevator pitch up. I'm Robert Clark. I think it froze there. Sorry. I'm Robert Clark. I live in Southern California, a little bit north of Los Angeles. I work in the insurance industry. I've been in here for 8 years now. But I think that's probably not why most people find me interesting. What I usually connect with other people on is the idea of financial education, real estate investing, e-commerce, running businesses, and trying to grow up and actually build something for yourself and be proud of it one day. So it's kind of what I try and figure out, and that's what I'm all about.
That's so awesome, guys. I mean, first and foremost, give this guy a follow. He has a lot of insight into wealth building, I guess is the best way to put that.
Yeah.
Wealth building's nice.
Yeah. And not from this. I think what's fun and why a lot of people resonate with some of the stuff that I share, and equally I resonate with your stuff, is because like none of us at the point are Warren Buffett, right? We're not out there to give all the tips and tricks. It's just, hey, here's what I'm trying to make work. Like, here's, if you went down the same path, here's some things you might find. And I'm equally interested in understanding some of my followers. I have followers that are really good at flipping real estate properties, like single family homes. And I'm just like, I can wrap my head around making that work from a balance sheet point of view. And so it's really interesting to see how they navigate those things. And, I learn equally as much from the people that follow me.
So you're a man of many trades, of what I've learned over the little bit that I've known you now. And what kind of spurred in you that you wanted to, elevate your personal being, become a better individual? Is there like a certain situation in your life that kind of made you pivot? What was your childhood like compared to, young adult life to where you are now?
Yeah. So for those who don't know the story, so my dad actually was diagnosed with cancer when I was 6 months old. We were very fortunate that he survived with that cancer for 20 years.
Wow.
That is why I'm in the industry I'm in today. But most importantly from that, like, his illness didn't really get extremely bad until I was a young man. So, 10 to 12 years old, let's say. And I have an older sister and my mother. And the lessons that I got out of having to step up my level of responsibility at a younger age than most was just, I think that's what transformed me to have the mindset shift of, okay, work as a team. Family is freaking everything. You could have all the money in the world, but if you don't have the health to enjoy it and the people to enjoy it with, like, it is meaningless. And ultimately, money should be your tool to help take care of the people that you love. Money is not a trophy. It's not a status. It is simply there to serve a purpose. And then, if you look at who has been successful in generating money to provide for their lifestyle, it tends to be responsible people that are doing good for other people when they generate that income, right? They're serving a mission in the world. And so one of the first books that I read in high school when I was like 16 was Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And that book just triggered so much in me to understand that you can make a couple slight adjustments in your day-to-day and in your habits and how you kind of approach things, and it can completely change the trajectory of your life for the better. I kind of became a
spot on
personal
right there,
development. Man. Yeah, I became a personal development nerd after that, and I always loved trying to kind of optimize how I see things and how I operate.
Through your personal development, is it more reading, attending seminars? Is there times where seminars are more valuable to you? When you're personal growth, what are some of the key things that our listeners and followers could take away to like maybe enhance their ability to grow personally, or maybe some opportunities they didn't know about?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say reading is, and take in the information however you please. Reading to me, or just discovering what other authors have put out there, is very valuable. So best is the best way to approach it. I generally, every night, I try and read for at least 10 or 15 minutes before bed. I can usually get through a book in about 1 to 2 weeks, depending on the length. But then this weekend, I was doing work in the backyard. I had my pods in, and I was listening to Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich for the second or third time now. And so like I'll listen to some stuff. But I think you've been at 10X Growth Con. I know you went to Gary Vee's conference. I love conferences. The part I struggle with is when, every speaker is just there to sell you a course or sell you a package. So to me, if you're going to go to a conference, the thing I loved about 10X Growth Con, I went to the first two, was I paid big money, not necessarily the content that was there, but the people I was surrounded by. So I paid for, I don't know, the VIP or diamond seats for 10X Growth. It was like 10 grand. It's a stupid number. And what I learned after 3 days, I learned more from seeing how the people operate at that caliber, right? They're all running organizations for the most part. They're thinking big, but it's also about they're focused on how they're building the right team, versus some of the other people that come to attend that conference. They're trying to figure out, what business idea to run with. And so I've taken, building a team, for example, has been my priority for the last 12 months. And we were just talking before we went live about, having that kind of digital media team, because you can produce all the content in the world, but it has to get out there. And you're going to be working 20 hours a day to try and learn how to post-produce this stuff. And that's just not feasible. So you have to find the right team members that are going to support and carry out your vision. You have to get buy-in from them, just like you get buy-in from a customer. And so this is a long saying, some of my biggest takeaways from conferences that I attend, I highly encourage going to conferences, but equally as interested in learning from the people you're sitting next to as the people on stage.
That's such a good point, Robert, because, I love the saying of Tony Robbins says you need to really learn how to work on your business rather than in your business. And I think that what you said earlier is how to build and structure the right team members or team players around you to help elevate and grow your personal brand, your business, your organization, whatever it is. Me personally, I think that's been the most difficult thing, is I'm getting to that pinch where I'm like, oh shit, I do not have another 20 hours in my week. It's not there. So how can you become resourceful and use the people around you to elevate that? Obviously it comes at a cost. So it's kind of interesting. How are you navigating that within your business? I know that from our brief history, you're in the insurance industry. You own some real estate. When building those team members, do you have a team with you, or have you hired? Do you have an assistant? Kind of what does your team look like right now? I think that that's probably pretty insightful for people that listen to this podcast, is how you've built the team around you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting. So as I think about response to this, and I think about the teams that exist in different channels, it's 1000% evident which ones have a team, because those are the most successful kind of aspects of my life right now. For instance, on the real estate aspect, all of my properties are, one, with a partner, and two, out of state. And so this makes it really difficult for, decision making and trying to get things, trying to understand the full depth of what we're getting into. So out of state, locally where our real estate lives, we have an extensive team that really makes it easy for me and my partner here. We have someone looking at deals. We have someone who is just in really good with a lot of the other owners of other properties that we'd like to acquire. We have good relationships with property management, with our banker. I mean, so you think about that team, there's really 5 or 6 people that all have a vested interest in our success for the real estate portfolio. And that is what really allows us to thrive, because, you add in some of those things about searching for deals and cold calling owners or what have you, and it's like that takes away from your main flow. And then, I look at the content production, and I have a video guy that I really want a podcast department. And guess what? I've only recorded 2 podcasts to date, because I don't know what to do with these things after the fact. So my podcast is in the toilet, and it's no wonder why, because I don't have anyone yet I can lean on to really work on those things.
And it's trustworthy too. I mean, when you're building that team, they're not all on your payroll. Like you mentioned, your banker, your property management. Obviously, property management is kind of built into the factor, but they're only paid if they bring in income. Yes. So I think that's a really good point to hit on, is building those strong relationships. Whatever business you're in, you need to know a lender and a banker, because those guys are the ones that source the capital for you. So, in regards to your podcast, it's not in the shitter yet. It just needs to be launched.
This might be episode number 3 for me. We'll see.
I love that.
The one thing I want to comment on, and you nailed it, is, even the people that you might want on your payroll, it's always best to partner and create partnerships as often as you can. So, like my video guy, for instance, I pay him per video that he releases, not how much time he spends on the video. I have a copywriting guy. I pay him per project. And like, as soon as he gets that project done, I want them to have a vested interest in our success together, not just collecting an hourly fee to help support my business.
I think that the direction of freelancing and outsourcing of work is really moving that direction. I think that, billable hours is changing dramatically. I think everything's becoming more like project pay, you'd call it, because, me personally, I'm incentivized by making money when I hit a goal line, not how many hours can I accumulate to get to that goal. Right. I've been, from a young age, that's just me personally. And I think that our industry, our markets, the use of technology is changing that drastically. I think, I use Fiverr and freelancer.com to fire out projects all the time. Like, hey, I need this flyer made or whatnot done. Whoever can do it the quickest, $20, right. 25, 50, 100, whatever it is. It's pretty insightful. So do you have any resources that you use for that purpose, as well as maybe somebody out there that's looking to get into real estate investing? Where do you start? Is it a partner that has the money? Is it a partner that has the experience, or both? Or where, when you first got into the real estate investing world, who is your kind of first contact or connection?
Yeah, I think the best way to address that is to really make sure, the very first fundamental piece is you have to be self-aware enough to know what ideally you are bringing to the table. And until like your best strengths and weaknesses, you don't know what other pieces of the puzzle you need. So, in my case, I had the capital. I also had some time to at least underwrite some of the deals, but I was finding that I didn't want to spend my time underwriting 30 deals. I wanted someone else to filter and show me the best 5, and then I can really go deep on those. And so I would, to that, I would just say, make sure you're really self-aware, of your strengths and what you can bring to the table. If you don't have capital, then like I know a real estate analyst, for example, he doesn't have much capital, but he knows a real estate balance sheet, whether it's a commercial property or single family. He knows that balance sheet inside and out and how to make those numbers work. Is very valuable to someone who has capital and has no idea to where to even start.
That's so true, because there's so many people out there that have boatloads of capital that they want to place, and don't have the experienced team to do it the right way. I see from a brokerage perspective, I see a lot of investors kind of get taken advantage of due to being inexperienced in commercial real estate investing, I guess, is the best way to put it. All right, we're pivoting this conversation to social media because you're a social media LinkedIn wizard. Why did you get started using LinkedIn? Is that the preferred platform for yourself? Give us a little background and context of your personal brand on the digital marketplace.
Yeah, so a lot of that, my theory around being present on LinkedIn versus Instagram and Facebook. I'm in the B2B marketplace, so I sell to I partner with other financial advisors and employee benefits producers. And so I really was just thinking about, hey, who's my target audience for whatever initiative, and where are they spending their time? And so for the audience that I was at specifically, they were all on LinkedIn. And for the company that I worked for previously, they wouldn't let you sit on Instagram all day. They wouldn't sit on Facebook, but they would encourage you to spend your time on LinkedIn because it was great prospecting ground. So I kind of took that as saying, okay, LinkedIn is where my audience exists, and LinkedIn is approved by my last employer. So I am going to commit 1,000% to LinkedIn engagement. And, it's gotten busier over the last year, I would say, of trying to kind of work the algorithm. All the algorithms always change. The one fundamental rule that I have found sticks regardless of what the algorithm says is to produce content that's naturally yours, that's kind of organic to you, and to produce it consistently. There is no secret, there's no rhyme or reason, there is nothing that will outpace that content distribution model. And I've probably failed to I always try and cater different content. I'll post this one on LinkedIn, but post this one on Instagram. And I'm starting to realize, like, I need this to be the same story. And, if what I post on LinkedIn doesn't vibe with my entire Instagram audience, the most important piece is it's me. And so, if you want to unfollow me because I'm not posting the motivational quote that you want me to post on Instagram, then go follow somebody else. Go follow Tony Robbins. I'm gonna share what is insightful to me, what is in my heart, and let's authenticate who's following along here.
See, I've loved that. And for those of you listening to this, you hit the nail on the head. Coming from a content producer myself, is consistency, authenticity, being real, being who you are, will only grow your personal brand tenfold on these digital platforms, because people can relate to you no matter what you're doing, what stage of life you're in, wherever you're at. So, for someone that's, let's say, completely brand new to LinkedIn, what are probably one or two most important tips? Is it setting up your profile, posting consistently, engaging with others? Do you have like one or two or three tips that would be, for someone that is either jumping in or maybe slightly experienced?
Yeah. So I would say the first and most important thing is to make sure that your profile picture on LinkedIn is actually you and is not you at a wedding. It's just you. And if you want to wear a t-shirt in it, that's fine. Just make sure it's, it's fitting for LinkedIn and for that audience. The profile, it's like, I don't know how many people actually read these summaries and biographies. People want to see your work experience. Sure. I would say if you're wanting to get started on LinkedIn, it's very similar to Gary Vee's strategy with Instagram. It's just go be an audience member, be an engaged audience member with who you're looking to connect with and interact with. And, share if you know what content to produce, or you're scared to produce your first piece of content or talk about something you want to talk about, just engage with other people and what they're trying to do. I'm a huge fan of finding, not necessarily mentors, but find the people that are already doing what you want to do. And I usually use this example in real estate, like find someone that's investing in real estate that you want to invest in. Look at how they're operating their business. I say the same for LinkedIn. If someone has a presence that you look up to and you're like, man, I wish I could get to that caliber at LinkedIn, good. Make note of what they're doing, not necessarily what they're saying. Don't repeat everything that they're going, but just look at what they're doing. How often are they posting? How are they engaging with the people that comment on it? Maybe are they sharing pictures? Are they sharing videos? Is this just pure kind of HTML, throw some copy in there and one or two emojis? Like, what are they doing and what's kind of cadence? And try and blend, maybe your message into some of those different formats.
Yeah, no, that's such a great point. I know that, I for me personally, I've caught myself doing that way too much, worrying about, is this going to be a good post or a good piece of content? And this is something I want to get your opinion on. I've caught myself recently on LinkedIn, specifically the platform, following and engaging on content of more of my colleagues than actual prospected clients. Do you tend to see that quite often? Rather, I think it's important to pay attention to what your competition's doing. But I was like, oh my gosh, I went through my connections the other day and I was like, oh my gosh, 90% of these people are other brokers. And like, right, what good does it do if they see my content versus a potential lead or client? Do you see that quite often?
Yeah, absolutely. Even in my business, it's pretty funny. I don't mind supporting some of the colleagues that, I'm just generally a fan of, because I believe, at least in my business, there's more business than any of us could have. We'd all be plenty successful. So there's no reason really to take from one another. But I see this all the time. And I know that the one thing I would say to this is, yes, colleagues or people that aren't your target prospect won't always be your engager. So the audience that's commenting or that's actively liking. But all that really matters is those one or two people who are actually prospects just happen to scroll past it, and they're not going to like it. They're not going to comment it. They're not going to do anything to give you that validation, but they'll keep scrolling. And so this is where consistency comes in. If you can consistently be showing up in their feed, whether they are engaging with you or not, you are making an impact. Unfortunately, you have no way to measure this until 2 years down the road, they decide to pick up the phone and they're like, oh my gosh, Blake, this is Ron with, so-and-so property management. Man, you crush it on LinkedIn. I have been following you and you are the guy. I finally had this come up, and then it's like, boom. And it's like, you've never heard of the person. You didn't know they exist. You didn't know they were watching you. And so, is it bad to have only colleagues? No, because you want some social proof. Because again, Ron, who doesn't engage with you, if he sees 15 people engaged with your post, well, you're not a weirdo. You're not trying to get rich quick. You have a community of people, and that's the social proof people want to see. So if it takes colleagues to do that, great. No harm.
That's such a good point, because I think there's no percentage as to how many people will scroll past your content and you'll imprint on them. It just goes back to the consistency aspect of, you know, I know it's hard at first. I know it's difficult to feel like you're of value, but all it takes at the same time is one person. You know, I've been pushing myself to go on Instagram Live, whether there's 1, 2, 3, 7, 10 people on it, you know, there's always one person that could see insightful value. So for those of you guys listening to this, that's, you know, a very important part of the social media strategy.
I want to ask Blake Haggett a question. Do you monitor how much time you spend on a social media platform?
I have set reminders on Instagram to notify me when I spend more than 2 hours a day.
Wow.
It goes off once a week, maybe. To be honest, I think time blocking is super, super, super important. Social media for me has become creative. So I don't like to put myself in a box when it comes to my time spent on social media, because over the last 5 years, I've seen a lot of return on that investment of time. I think I could be more efficient with it, but at the same time, a lot of my social posting and all that stuff is so creative that I don't like to put myself in a box with it. I know in the last 6 months, I've loved Twitter. And now it's like, oh shit, I was taking a piss this morning and I thought of this great tweet to create some interesting insight as to what's going on in the world right now or whatnot. And so I think there's times when you're super creative and super not creative, and you have to balance those and just make sure that your work-life balance is, social media work balance is in tune. So
exactly. Absolutely.
All right. Well, final thoughts. We didn't even touch about what's going on in the world today, because in ways I think it's very irrelevant, because whatever happens, happens. And we just got to roll with the punches. But do you have any final thoughts for those out there listening to this podcast as well as viewing it? I know the first thing you're probably going to say is go get a haircut, Blake, whenever everything's open back up again. But just some insight as to, you know, maybe something that either a new entrepreneur or a real estate investor, just kind of something broad that you've found insightful in your career and hopefully can help someone else.
Yeah, I mean, I think my most important rule is if there is something that you're desiring, then find people who have that already and just model what they're doing. I said that before and I'll reemphasize that again. Number 2 would be that the importance of having habits built in to all of these different categories. It's very easy for me to not spend enough time on my insurance business in a day. It's very easy for me to ignore what's going on in real estate or what have you. And those are going to pull and tug against each other for the rest of the time. So making sure, and you mentioned this, time blocking, making sure that if it's something that you need to tend to in that business, one, you know, create some measurement or metric that can help you follow along and hold you accountable to that. And then 2, that you're giving enough time to yourself to manage, you know, whatever aspect of your life that is. Because the one that I've found is if I spend all day doing the insurance stuff, which I want to be doing, but then a real estate thing comes into play and I can't, you know, I can't get to it, then I'm taken away from the family that I normally like to spend time with in that same 24 hours. And, you know, you're always going to have that push pull. And so making sure that, you know, I just got back from a 30-minute dog walk with my fiance, because I'm like, listen, like I scheduled it into my day because that is very important to me. It's important to her. And there were a million other things I could have been doing or wanted to do, but you just have to be very intentional about if there's habits, make habits first. And if you do have habits that you're sticking and held accountable to that schedule.
Awesome, Robert. Well, I've really appreciated your time today, and as well as your friendship over the years. I know I've learned a lot from you, and I look forward to maybe having a real estate investment together someday.
That would be a lot of fun. I love that. Yeah, man, it's a two-way street. I appreciate you, Blake. Thanks for having me on. And I hope for many more joint collaborations together in the future.
I love it. Where can the followers, listeners, everybody tuning in, what's the best place to find you?
Yeah, so LinkedIn, I'm pretty active. I'm trying to stay consistent with that. I'm under Robert Clark, and then I have like 4 designations after my name, super nerdy. Looks like alphabet soup. Instagram at The Income Advisor, and yeah, those are probably my 2 most active places.
Awesome, man. Well, to leave it off, I think we're all going to be generous as fuck today. Is that what the shirt says?
That is what the shirt says.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for tuning in to the Blake Haggett Podcast, and we'll see you next time.